Well, good morning. This morning we're going to be talking about discussion questions from this last Sunday's message. So starting with the second one in that Church at Home devotional, you could look up on our website. And it says, read John 10:10 and 1 John 3:8. We're going to focus on that first verse. And it says, what is the work of the devil? How does the devil work to destroy the value, worth, and self-esteem of women today? And why is it so destructive for women to get their value and worth from their outward appearance? What are steps we can take to undo the work of the devil? Well, I think this obviously does apply to moms and women, but I think this applies to everybody. And at the end of the day, what that is that I think social media can just be brutal sometimes. I know it wasn't made just for that, but it's turned into this thing where we just start comparing ourselves to others and start thinking, well, gosh, they have the picture perfect family all the time. Like, my family is not that perfect. There's no way we'd ever be able to have that many posts like that. And we just start comparing ourselves to what these people make their social media page portray their family as, which I think it's safe to say isn't always the case for those families either. There's no perfect family. So there's no way that they're always that picture perfect, like everything looks like it's great. They have struggles too. They just don't post those. But I think that's something that we struggle with. We always want to compare ourselves. Oh gosh, that person's kids looks great. I know in Pastor Bob's message, he talked about just how crazy birthday parties have gotten and just how, gosh, we go through all of these lengths to, gosh, we got to make sure that one-year-old birthday party that they're not going to remember looks great for those pictures we're going to have to show them later. When there's certain, I mean, you still want it to look great. I'm not saying don't try at all, but some of what we spend our time on and how intricate we try to do things, it's almost like we're worried our identity, like we're going to fail as people if we don't come through and do it as perfect as somebody else. And that's just not what God's made us to stress. He doesn't want us to stress about those kind of things. And so when you look at John 10:10, it says, a thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come so that they may have life and have it in abundance. When we recognize who we truly are, not just as the parent or the person who's got to come up with a social media post or the person that's got to look a certain way or throw a certain kind of birthday party. When we recognize, no, I am a child of God. I need to live out my faith and reflect God to others. And that's going to take a lot of different ways based on how God's gifted us. So not every single person is going to live that out exactly the same. Although there's certain ways we try to live out our life that should be similar for all Christians, like being loving. But when I read this passage, I just think it's so true that we're constantly being pulled and looking at our identity as something that it's not. One thing we're doing with the students right now is our series is currently on Wednesday nights, Satan's Arrows. And we're talking about different ways that the enemy tries to distract us from our relationship with God or put a wedge in between us and God. And one of those ways is piling on guilt. And then we're finding our identity in some past mistake or something we did. And instead of running to God and asking for forgiveness and moving on, we dwell on it. We act like Adam and Eve did in the garden. We hide and just our identity is all of a sudden wrapped up in some decision we made, some mistake we made. And we can't get past it. And other times it's just busyness. We allow these other things that have come into our lives to just become our identity. And we don't know who we are if that thing disappears. We need to make sure our identity first is in who God has made us to be. When we come to recognize what Jesus did on the cross, that means we recognize He deserves every part of us. And we've talked a lot about that. Part of what that means is our identity is who He is. Our identity is found on that cross. That we are His children because of that one single act. Not because of something we do on a daily basis, but because of what Jesus already did. Our identity is changed. We need to be living that out, trying to reflect God's love all around us, but also making sure we're not comparing ourselves to the people around us. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter as long as we feel confident in who God has made us to be and that we are trying to live that out. We're not going to be perfect, but as long as we are trying to live that out every day, that's what our identity should be. That's where we find that purpose, and that's where, like that passage says, we get to experience that abundant life even here, just living out the calling God's given for our life. So be praying, God, what is that calling for me? And be praying that God would protect you from these lies the enemy gives you, that your identity is wrapped up in how you look on social media or how you present yourself in certain situations. As long as you are confident that you know who God has made you to be and and you're on that path, you're going the right direction. So I know we're praying for you. Continue to pray that God would open your eyes to who He's made you to be. We'll see you again soon.